Yeah, good answer. Okay, here's the big pressure. You've got one more question.
Oh my God. And it's a good one. Yeah. I want to go with one that I've already written down. And it's a topic you talk a lot about. It's love. And I would like to know, let me see which part. Um, what has been your biggest adventure or life lesson when it comes to love? Something you can, that feels the most inspiring for you.
Inspiring, a life lesson around love.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, I don't want to say anything trite or obvious, but it is pretty obvious that, to me at least, that the feeling, the sensation, the experience of love, whether it's romantic or something more open, right, is the central characteristic of what it is to be human and really the universe. It's like it's really easy to overlay that sense of interconnectedness and interdependence and openness that is engendered, and it, like, romantic love gives us this like glimpse into what we could feel like. It's actual state that we can get into. And it's not just about a person, but can also be about an idea or a tree or nature or the universe, right? That this sense of like kind of like awe and absolute acceptance and attraction to an experience, something out that seems to be outside of us, that this sort of blossoming happens. And it's one of the things I first noticed about when I first fell in love. I must have been all of like 17 or 18 years old, and I fell into that incredible limerence. We call it falling in love, but technically it's something else a little bit more deep. And it's, you're high, but at the same time, like, magic happened. Suddenly there was a different relationship to everything in the world. Like it was like able to manifest things, or the wishes would come true. If you wanted something, it would appear. There was this magic that happened when something opened inside, and it certainly was focused on this one person, my beloved. And it had all of the romantic trappings, roses and kisses and making out and making love and all that. And yet something else was happening in my life. Like everything became like brighter and more joyful. And it wasn't just that I was high. It was also that I was receiving more gifts from the world. And I remember, like, every adventure, every experience that we had together was filled with this kind of like magic flow. It would be like, we're like, oh my gosh, we're getting hungry. And then suddenly the most amazing restaurant would just show up, and we'd be like, that, driven by this hundreds of times and never saw this place. And now it turns out this is the nicest lady in there. It was just like, and they just gave us this incredible, and it's like these experiences would start happening, like the world became more magical, right? And I thought, well, maybe this is some sort of portal into a different way of being with the world that was more magical and more oriented towards interconnectedness and joy and interdependence. And it wasn't just a chemical state, even though it was rooted in a biochemical state, right? It's just you get high on all these different neurotransmitters, and you can break it down to that sort of scientific, materialist way of looking at things. But there was another element to it. And then obviously over time, I realized it was a there's a huge part of a spiritual path and awakening to suddenly say that I can choose the quality of the relationship I'm having with everything and every experience. That if I filter it through this kind of loving acceptance, that even the things I don't like are also part of the perfection and are worthy of that kind of like awe and respect and understanding that, yeah, without the contrast, the dark and the light are co-emergent, and there was less struggle to always try to be in this some sort of everything's perfect kind of thing, and recognize, oh, the magic is happening all the time. And yet we have a veil of the ego and the self that makes it so that it's that the suffering seems like against us, like about us, right? And there's, that's the delusion that we can get into. And so love kind of opened up this whole possibility of looking at the world. And of course, I started to study spirituality and religious texts and, deeper philosophical things. And it all seemed to like weave back in to this ability that you could create the state within yourself where life and death and suffering and joy and everything became lighter and more acceptable in a way. And throughout my life, it's, as I get older and I've had more life experience, there's this recognition that, of course, you have to do a lot of acceptance of the fact that life is suffering, is terminal, that it isn't about always being in that happy space, that relationship itself, the love between two humans, is not some unbroken chain of joy and fun and attraction and sexiness. It's like, oh no, you get this little, like, you get this period of time, and then it arcs and it does this and it starts to do the cycle and the wheel turns. And you can get stuck on any part of the wheel. You can end up in disappointment and heartbreak and pain and suffering. But if you trust it, you can rise again, and love rises again, and you can actually generate those feelings and connections and ecstatic experiences with medicine or meditation, or even just sometimes getting up in the morning. You can have that moment when it all is perfect. And sort of a samadhi is love, that sense of absolute interpenetration between self and other. There is no other. There is no outside. Duality breaks down, and what's left but this incredible feeling of love. And love is so many layers of meaning there. It's like hard to break it down. Belonging and interdependence and interpenetration, and just suddenly absolute safety, because even death is a gift, right? And recognizing that, hey, you're not going to feel that way. When I cut my hand, or if I get sick, or if I'm suffering from cancer or something, things I've never experienced, but the suffering is not something anybody would consider to be loving or love, and yet it really is. It is part of the love of everything, as you go through this. And saints can do this. That's the whole kind of how you're with a saint, is that it's all good. There's no fear, there's no suffering. It's just like full, complete acceptance of what is. And I recognize that one of the gifts of being human is that we get this experience of what we call romantic love, but it goes beyond that. It's like those kind of long-term relationships where someone becomes essential, and you have those feelings once in a while of like, nobody else like you. Oh my God, you light me up, because you make me recognize that even in the other, even in the conflicts, there's this beautiful, joyful possibility of this, and not get stuck on that. It's always got to be that, or else it's not, the happily ever after myth, so yeah.
That's how we are raised, right? We are raised with this Disney fairy tale. Oh, we have to be so happy. And I think it's so beautiful that more and more people are starting to see when everything gets to be there, then you can be very grateful about what love is teaching you.
Yeah, the depth that's available through that experience. Of course, we've got sold it. We don't realize how saturated and conditioned we are by media and things like that. The written word itself, when we started to write stories, we made up stories that made us feel good. And we kind of invented this whole romantic happily ever after myth, and then it just sort of got perpetuated. And yet every married couple, the ones who had great relationships and the ones that had really horrible ones, obviously, but everybody who's been through it for a little while or been through life realizes it ain't like that. It's a lot of work, and all of the spiritual traditions say, look, your happiness and your joy is an internal job. It has nothing to do with external conditions. It's how you're perceiving and receiving those and giving meaning to those external conditions. Are you a victim, or are you participating in something larger than yourself? And that's really the key to moving through those dips, and it's just a childish kind of mythology that we could just do this happily ever after. To find happiness, right? Satisfaction, a deeply satisfying relationship is one that where the conflict is kind of like, there's always a little joyful, like, I'm so glad I'm having this fight with you and this disagreement. It doesn't feel good right now, but damn, this is rich and juicy stuff, that makes life worth living. You're teaching me something about where I'm at, my wounds, my shadows, your shadows, our shadows as humans. It's kind of like an invitation. Hey, let's not like say, let's be in love together. Let's be human together and just be really human. And also like non-adversarial. Let's not try to make us into something perfected image of, what we're supposed to be, which is Hollywood and all of that.
And to create a safety so that everything can be there. I feel that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
But I don't want to, I don't want to steal your answering time.
No, I know you. I know it's that we and we've talked before, and it's like I know this in a way. It's like for me personally, it's been a long process to deprogram myself from the dissatisfaction. I mean, I've had incredible relationships, and they all started to do that thing, And at first, I was very upset and disappointed and brokenhearted, and what's developed is a kind of forgiveness for that and the transientness sometimes of those feelings and the commitment. And it's a different game to, love and partnership are really two different things. Romantic love and partnership or friendship and partnership. It's like, yeah, there's a practical side of like, why are we doing this? What's the, it's like, yeah, I have all these feelings for you because I'm having great orgasms or something with someone. And it's just, there's that sense of, you're getting high and you're not really seeing the whole picture. So you just like patiently wait for that wave to pass and kind of like, I encourage people to enjoy it, but not overindulge in it. Don't make any promises at that point because you're high on ecstasy. You're just like, oh my God, you feel great. And you want to be able to get back to that, but you also want to ground it into something like, oh, if we're talking partnership, then okay, we got to talk about some real practical things. It's like, are we compatible in the long run? How do we move through the difficulties? Do we have a similar fighting style, right? Can we harmonize even in our fighting and come to and use the same kind of like rules of engagement, that kind of stuff. And most people don't think that consciously about why they're doing. They're just moving through their day, whatever mood comes up, whatever impacts them, they're just in reaction. And So it's really this call to consciousness, to awareness, to self-awareness. It's like, why am I doing what I'm doing? Why am I asking? Why am I wanting? Why am I in this mood? What's underneath that? Oh, let's look at some of the somatic feelings, the shadows, this deep psychology. So it's this, this beautiful invitation into the deep self that is offered through closeness with another human being or even another animal. Obviously horses and dogs and stuff have things to teach us, mammals, trees, the ocean. It's always
Mm-hmm.
communicating with us. And that's what I really call love, is just
Mm-hmm.
listening closely to everything, and really doing a good job of translating what's coming through without distortion because of our own biases, our own shadows.
I feel it's really beautiful because it sounds like it opened you up to explore more and to go into spirituality, and now it has become your job to share your own experiences.
Yeah.
It sounds like love, love and life really shaped you uh, to be able to do what you do right now.
Being a romantic, and like I said, even in high school, as soon as I sort of flipped on that hormonal mating thing, which happens right around 12 or 13 years into our life, it suddenly became like a focus. And I turned it in from a obsession shadow thing into a mission. And it was like, so I've almost transcended romance.
Mm,
It's now my tool. It's like, it's just another part of the dance of relating to life in the world. And it's the biggest game. It's for humans. It's really why we're doing everything, is
mm,
all
yeah.
around this mating and community and relationship thing, not just with an individual, but with a community, with our environment, right? And so better get those skills down, even though we didn't get all the information when we were young. Our culture doesn't support this kind of like um, depth of relating to things. It's all me, me
Yeah.
relationships instead of we.
And now you are going to support other people, or you're already supporting other people to go on their own journey and inspiring them. And
Yep. That's
yeah,
why I'm not a therapist. I'm actually a philosopher of love and pragmatic, sort of a sorcerer, right? It's like not a wizard, as in I can cast spells, but I can give people the formulas that will help them relate to these things in a positive way, so it doesn't become another tragic loss. It's like too many broken hearts, too many people not in love with their lives, and it's killing the world. It really is. It's like when we don't love ourselves, when we don't love our lives, we can't really take care of anything else, right? We just don't care.